Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. And here are our top stories. The upcoming school year has everyone worried, and helping your child choose between in-classroom and virtual learning. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Abigail Titus. She is a middle school teacher with Pivot Charter School. Abigail, welcome back to the program. Great to see you this morning.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Having a great summer?
Yeah, so far going well. Luckily, been able to get outside a lot in the rural community that I live in and still do social distancing. So I feel really happy about that.
Yeah, it's nice to do. Hard to do if you live in a big metropolis. You can't really go anywhere without being within 6 feet of people, but you are very lucky, and people in your community very lucky. So let's jump in because, we just started summer at the end of June, but people are already talking about the new school year. And I want to get your sense for this, but my sense is that there are parents and teachers and administrative officials, a lot of people worried about this upcoming school year. What are you hearing from your leadership? What are you hearing from people in your community about going back to school?
Yeah, it's definitely a big concern for families as well as teachers. And there's just a lot that we still don't know. I think that leaders and administrators are trying to wait as long as possible, gather as much information as they can, and the more we learn, make better decisions from that. But that can be frustrating for families who have just gone through 3 months of distance learning potentially that may have gone well or not so well for them and their students. Families are worried about students falling behind. So here in our local districts, not a lot of decisions have been made. Lots of ideas are floating around. There are models where students may attend school a few days a week and work from home the other days. There's models that students will stay completely online and work that way. And then not quite in my area, but in other areas, schools are hoping to open completely. And there's been some recommendations by like the American Pediatrics Association and government people to do it that way. So there's a lot of different models floating around.
Yeah, I guess it's really hard to kind of firm up details. We're in the middle of a second phase of this virus kind of coming around, more cases. I'm not sure what the death rate is. Hopefully it's gone down, but whatever it is, that has people very, very much concerned. When we last chatted, Abigail, we talked about things that parents could do with their children during the summer, reading books and sitting down. And I got to think that the parents are kind of up to their necks. They've been managing the family. They've been helping the kids learn. And it's not easy, as you can probably attest to, when you have children in a classroom or even virtually. It's not always easy to get their attention. Parents have to be a little frustrated. They probably like to get back to their, normal lives at some point. But how do you respond to that frustration? What can they do to mitigate the frustration and help put their child in the best place possible for learning?
Yeah, I think that is completely reasonable to feel that way. But the fact of the matter is that this school year is going to be unlike any other. And families are going to have to decide what the priority is for their students. So for some students, maybe it will be close to normal and they will be able to return to a school district that's opening fully. But some children aren't able to do that for health reasons, or maybe there's people in their families who don't have the option available to them. And it is definitely frustrating for parents. So I recommend that parents in the next couple of weeks before school starts, looking around at different options. There are a lot more models than were around when we were younger. And so there's a potential that there could be a more supportive program that involves homeschooling or independent learning than what they've experienced in the spring and over the summer, where it will be a less frustrating experience, a more supportive experience for their students. So those are things that are worth looking into, but also just, I would say, as all of us are, being patient with the fact that this school year is going to be far from normal, and just trying to keep everyone as safe as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the teachers too, because I don't want them to go unnoticed or unconsidered. You may have some teachers that are more mature. They may have some concerns about going back in the classroom. I mean, it's not just parents and their children. The children can bring it home to the parents, right, and infect older, more mature people and start the process. But also teachers who may have comorbidities or other health issues could be at risk. There has to be some concerns there about what do you do. If I'm a mature teacher with some health risks, do I return to school? What does that mean in terms of shuffling classes, in terms of delivering school lessons? That's got to throw a lot of what the lesson plans into tumult as well.
Yeah, that is a huge concern among teachers who are worried about returning to school, worried about their own health. And the other layer involved is that there's no additional funding for cleaning or for supplies or for testing. So it would be another situation if a teacher felt confident in every part of this country that they could be tested frequently, kind of like healthcare workers are, because of the exposure. Teachers in the fall get sick a lot just because everyone's been apart during the summer, and then all the students come back together into these classrooms with each other, and a lot of illness sparks up during that time normally. So that is likely to occur with our seasonal flus and with COVID. And so it's another layer that schools are going to have to deal with. There's no policies designed around this to support teachers yet. But yeah, those older teachers and teachers with comorbidities could be putting themselves in a really big risk to return to a classroom, especially without the safety gear that could protect them.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about, head count and how do you replace those teachers? And, I don't think like there's not like a deep bench where, an NBA team or an NFL team, you call up the next person on the team to take the place. I mean, there might be, I guess, I don't know if they still have substitute teachers, but there may be some level of substitute teachers, but you can't replace a full-time teacher. And if you have a large scale of full-time teachers that just cannot return, how do you deal with that? I mean, that has got to be very challenging administratively. If you're a school superintendent, a principal of a school, and some of the other higher educational leaders, they have to be kind of game planning for that as well.
Definitely. And we, in a lot of schools, have a strong teachers union that there can't be a replacing of a veteran teacher. That's a teacher with 20 years of knowledge potentially that they're bringing to their classroom, and they have a right to that position that they're in. But at the same time, like you're saying, is it right to put them in such a risky position? Or many schools, in my area at least, are trying to focus more on this distance learning model and potential to protect teachers, to protect families. And just as in traditional education, it can evolve and adapt and get better over time as teachers learn new skills and new technologies, so that it may not be what it was in the spring, and it could potentially get better and still keep everyone safe. So that's one possibility.
Yeah, I think that the key word here is flexibility, agility, and innovation. It looks like those are going to be the rules of thumb for this school year. And credit to those parents and credit to the teachers and everyone involved. I think it's going to take an army of people, a village, to solve this issue and deliver education. We don't want to fall behind. We don't want these kids to fall behind, that's for sure. Abigail, I want to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the choice between virtual learning and learning in the classroom. What things should you consider before sending your child back to school? Stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Well, welcome back. We're talking to Abigail Titus. She's a middle school teacher with Pivot Charter School. Abigail, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, you know, it's obviously there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made this fall by elected officials, administration, teachers, parents. But one of the key decisions is whether you send your child back into a virtual classroom or into a physical classroom. And we were just talking about this in the last segment. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. There's a lot of different models, as you put it, scenarios. But let's talk about this because we've already had several months of virtual learning. But what should we be thinking about before sending our children back into the classroom?
Yeah, there's a lot to consider. And I think the main factors are, of course, health, but also students' academic and social progress. So it's kind of a something you have to weigh both sides of. There's certain officials who say that going back to a classroom is fairly safe for children and their families, and they urge children to go back so that there are not huge gaps in learning and so that students don't miss social and emotional development during critical years. And so that is something to consider if you're able to do that health-wise. However, on the other hand, of course, it's a risk to bring all these children from our community together indoors into classrooms where they could get sick or get other people sick. And so it really depends what's best for your child and for your family, but it's worth exploring those other options. There are more than there ever have been before. One thing to be aware of is that some local school districts have had a independent study program within them for years. And so those can be a better option for certain families to kind of do homeschooling with a ton of curriculum support with something that's really built out to make sure that students are meeting every academic need that they need for that school year. So those more developed programs that have been around before COVID are the ones that are more likely to cover the academics that you would hope to see, as opposed to teachers developing for the first time an online curriculum at the school that you may have been at in the fall or in the spring.
Yeah, in one area that I think you mentioned that really struck me was the social aspect. And look, I remember running around during recess playing stickball and kickball and doing the things, and the interactions with your classmates in those circumstances, whether you get disciplined, which was often the case for me, or just the daily interactions that we had passing each other in the hall or by the locker. You learn how to interact with people. Is there a concern for younger people? You're middle school, so that's typically ages, I think, 12 to 14, 6th to 8th grade generally. But maybe even younger, those 1st through 5th graders that they go into their formative years, they're not going to have the time to interact, to develop those relationships. And oftentimes we build those bonds throughout all the years together. We typically go through schools together, in the same classes year after year. I mean, that seems to me a big risk, and that social development could really set back kids far.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was seeing this, and other teachers were seeing this even before the pandemic started. Students are struggling more socially, and we typically attribute it to an increase in screen time and less interactions with people face to face. So students are coming to us self-reporting that they feel social anxiety and that they don't feel comfortable. Middle school is already a hard time for anyone in their life, and it's only that's only increased by certain technologies that we've adapted. And so it definitely is a concern to think of students going another 6 months or another school year without that interaction. So if you're in a situation as a family where you have the ability to get students into activities that are a little safer, that are outdoors, or even partnering up with another family as kind of the family that your students go and see their students. That's something I've heard of families doing just to make sure those social skills are developing. When it comes to academic, those things are really related. Students learn really well in collaborative settings, and that's kind of the type of workforce we want to prepare as people who can work together and communicate. And so it's definitely going to be a loss this year to not have that time to help these students develop. And I'm just hopeful that in the future we can come back together and help these students again.
Yeah, even with like Zoom and FaceTime, I mean, you are isolated. And I think that is, I just wonder, you mentioned the collaborative nature of work today, and we have to be because we can't do everything. Yes, I think the screen time definitely contributes to that. I mean, kids are definitely not as active. We used to play in the woods after school and get into all sorts of trouble, play ball. Kids do a lot of gaming, and not everyone. I mean, kids still play sports, but I have to think about what the impact will be on the future of the workforce if we can't solve this problem. And I don't think it is easily solvable. I mean, you can put on VR glasses and pretend to walk around as an avatar in a Sim City-like environment, but that is not the same thing as standing shoulder to shoulder with your classmate, or playing stickball or kickball, or working on a science project together. It's just not the same. It's not. You don't see the body language. You don't see the faces, the smiles, the the concern on the people's faces if someone kind of gets out of line.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a concern. And on the optimistic side, there is a potential that students could develop other skills during this time period. They could become better suited at certain technologies. There's times where students can work on like Google Documents together, or build projects together online. So there is opportunities for collaboration and for social interaction through virtual learning, through distance learning. But that, as you said earlier, that requires innovation, that requires flexibility and learning on the part of teachers and students. So I think there is potential for these skills to continue to develop in a virtual setting, but it takes a lot of learning on the part of the whole community for those things to start to take place. And we also have to remember what we've talked about before, which is that certain students have better access to technology than others. And so that's another thing we have to be aware of going into the fall.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. Some people may not have access to a tablet, or maybe one laptop in the house, or they may not even have Wi-Fi or LTE, 4G LTE technology in order to connect. I mean, this is, going back to the parents. Look, I mean, they have to shoulder a lot here, and maybe even going outside and throwing the ball around or doing little, not Easter egg hunts, but little hunts for little things and things that help stimulate, ideas in education, but also get the legs moving and the feet moving. It sounds like that's one of the few ways that you can do what you can do as a parent. I mean, if you can't put your kid in the classroom, or they can't have gym class, or they can't play t-ball or some other sport because of the virus, it's going to kind of fall to them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if your child is in virtual education in the fall, those are really important things to keep in mind. Some of the things we've talked about before, which is that daily structure falls on the shoulder of the parents. So even if you do find a really great online curriculum that works for your student, it's going to be the role of you as a parent to build in recess and art and lunch, and all of those things promote cognitive development and really help the learning to solidify. And that's why they're built into a regular school day as well. So yes, anything you can do that sparks curiosity in a student, or drives an interest of theirs, or is outside or movement based, all of those things are great for kids. They promote resiliency as well, which is one thing that our students may come out of all of this with, is a sense that they can overcome even the biggest challenges. So hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, and you made a really good point about, I left out the arts, the sciences, obviously very important, art class, music, etc. Abigail, always a pleasure chatting with you. Really insightful, a lot for parents, administrators, and teachers to all think about in the coming weeks and months. Good to talk to you, and we'll have you back in the program again very soon. And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.